because it's kind of one of my favorite things to do, which is cross-domain applications. So to take a concept, whether that be, Kalman filtering or neural networks or something like that were used to do one thing and make them do another. Perfect example was, I've come up with a way for a company to maximize their hedge effectiveness per unit cost. And what I call it the efficiency frontier. And I basically took an idea from the 1960s from a guy named Markowitz, who had come up with a concept called the investment frontier, where basically you have an asset portfolio, gold, silver, equities, whatever, and you want to allocate a percent of your portfolio to each to get the best returns. I took his concepts and his math and turned it around to hedging risk. So, it was completely, same math, different concept, different domain. And there are many, many examples of where this can be done. And it is just a rich place to play and it's fun and rewarding. Right?
Yep. It's incredible how you can build such cool things that I see you building at Deaglo, just from the richness of experience that you have from a completely different domain. But anyway, going back to your company that you founded, Currency Risk Management, I understand you had a successful exit with that company. Is that right?
Well, basically, let's just kind of go back in time. I created that company in 2012. In 2014, I met Ashley, our current CEO in Deaglo. At that time, he was working for a large banking provider called Afex. And he had seen a lot of the work I was doing in balance sheet hedging and wanted to either bring me into Afex or to work with me as a partner. But the powers that be at Afex weren't interested. And so, but that was where I met him. And so back 4.5 years now ago, Ashley had gotten just really frustrated with Afex and, not being able to innovate and do the things he wanted to do that he knew could be done. And so he decided to create Deaglo, and I was the guy that he reached out to and said, would you be a co-founder with me in Deaglo? And as a part of that deal, all of my inventions, I guess you could call them, algorithms, all that sort of stuff that were the IP of my company became part of Deaglo. And that was kind of my ownership in Deaglo was based on that. So that was what happened.
That's super cool. So it basically, because he acquired your company and he was like, all right, jump on for the ride. So that's
exactly
super cool.
Right. I mean, I had a bunch of applicable IP. And so I was like, we'll start this new company, and we've already got IP to go that's already proven. It's already been in use for 6 years, right? So it's not like a brand new startup, where they don't have any clients, they don't have any IP, and they're just going to invent everything from the ground up. I enabled us to get a jump start on all that so that, we never took any outside money. Right. We Ashley funded the first 6 months of the company out of his own pocket. And then past that, we were self-funded. We were already making enough money to pay all the salaries and hire more people, and never had to dilute the company.
That's awesome. So before I met Dan here, I didn't actually know of Deaglo. So could you explain a little bit, like, what is Deaglo and like what your day-to-day is and like what your role is in that?
Sure. So Deaglo is basically a FinTech company, fancy way of saying, that we use technology in finance. And there's really two components to it. There is a platform that users can get onto and use various tools that we have invented to help them measure their risk and manage their risk and then exit from their positions. And then the other piece of it is we have an advisory arm with 2 or 3 very talented, smart guys that just work directly with end users and use our tools internally to solve those problems. So we started off with just advisory. In fact, it was really just, the founders, me writing code for problems that we found, right? Like, I'll give you an example. The first 6 months, we were introduced to an investment fund in Brazil who attracted U.S. investors, and they had run multiple funds before. The first fund did it really well as denominated in Brazilian reais, but it did terrible in dollars. And that was because the U.S. investors were not hedged against the FX risk. And so working with the investors and the GP, the general partner of the investment fund, we started to create tools that we could demonstrate how we were going to solve this problem to the investors so that they would have confidence to invest again, and that FX loss would not impact them, and they would enjoy returns that were similar to the Brazilian reais returns. And so we grew organically very rapidly. I would just keep inventing new tools that we could communicate the risk and figure out exactly the best hedges and figure out the impacts to various metrics like IRR. We were so successful at that the investment fund GP actually had Ashley and I on the calls with the investors. So, for example, CalPERS, right? The California retirement system was one of those investors. And so the GP just trusted us to talk to the LPs. And we would explain what we were doing, and the LPs were going, that sounds great. We're in now.
Yeah, that's quite a success story.
So that's how we got going, and that's what we do. My role is CTO, Chief Technology Officer, although I think Dan probably deserves that term more than I do. But my role is basically the best, funnest job in the world, which is to ideate. What do we do next? I get to think up new stuff, and it's very definitely my happy place. I could not, having started where I did in the tech world, I know a very great deal about low-level algorithms and coding. I know almost nothing about modern web programming. And so, it's great to have Dan's team take my ideas and bring them to life so that other people can use them. And that's kind of what happens. That's what the way it works is I come up with stuff. Sometimes I prototype it, or sometimes I just describe it in great detail. And then they design the UIs, and we test it with our advisory team. And then they create, new iterations of our platform with these new tools all the time. And so that's kind of my role in the company, is to kind of keep the creative engine rolling and to deepen the moat, the competitive moat against others who might try and emulate and compete with us. And
so you're just the guy that they lock in the room and just spew out crazy ideas, and that they say, "Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one."